My name is Catherine, and at 56 years old, I finally bought my dream home, a small beach house in Carlsbad, California, with windows that face the Pacific and mornings filled with the sound of waves. I had worked 30 years for this moment, but I kept it secret. I told no one, not even my son. I thought my silence would protect my sanctuary. Then, one afternoon, my neighbor called with a warning that changed everything. Strangers were inside my house. I checked the security cameras, and what I saw made my blood run cold. It was my son's family celebrating like they owned the place. Before I tell you what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from. If you have ever felt taken advantage of by someone you love, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because this story is one you will not forget. Now let me take you back to the beginning, to the day I decided to buy that house, and why I could never tell my son about it. I have been a widow for 5 years now. My husband David died of a stroke when he was only 55. One moment we were planning our retirement, talking about traveling and spending time with our grandson. The next moment, he was gone. The grief nearly destroyed me. For months, I could barely function. I went to work at the hospital where I worked as an administrator, came home, and sat in silence. Our house in Phoenix felt too big, too empty, too full of memories. But slowly, I learned to live again. I threw myself into work. I picked up extra shifts. I volunteered for projects nobody else wanted. Work became my therapy, my distraction, my purpose. And in those years, I saved money. More money than I had ever saved in my life. Between David's life insurance, our savings, and my salary, I built up a substantial nest egg. I have one son, Trevor. He is 32 years old, married to a woman named Brooke, and they have 2 beautiful children. Ethan is 5 and Sophia is 3. I love those babies more than anything in this world. I love my son too, of course. But over the years, my relationship with Trevor has become complicated, strained, and if I am being honest, painful. It started right after David died. Trevor called me constantly those first few months. At first, I thought he was checking on me, making sure I was okay, and maybe initially he was. But then the conversation shifted. He started asking about money, about David's life insurance, about our savings, about the house. He suggested I sell the house in Phoenix and move in with him and Brooke. They had plenty of room, he said. I could help with the kids. It would be better for everyone. But I did not want to move in with them. I needed my independence. I needed my own space to grieve, to heal, to figure out who I was without David. So I said no. Trevor seemed hurt, but he backed off for a while. Then came the requests for money. The first time Trevor called and said his car had broken down. He needed $5,000 for repairs. It was an emergency. I sent the money without hesitation. He was my son. Of course I would help. He promised to pay me back within 3 months. 3 months came and went. No repayment, no mention of it. 6 months later, Trevor called again. This time, he and Brooke had credit card debt. $15,000. They were drowning in interest payments. Could I help them out? Just this once? They would pay me back, he swore. They had a plan. I hesitated this time. $15,000 was not a small amount, but Trevor sounded desperate. He sounded ashamed. So I sent the money. Again, he promised to pay me back. Again, he never did. The third time was the worst. Trevor called and said they had found their dream home. They wanted to make an offer, but they needed $20,000 for the down payment. Their savings had been wiped out by unexpected expenses. Could I loan them the money? I felt my stomach twist. $20,000. On top of the money I had already given them. That was $40,000 total, but Trevor was my son, and Ethan and Sophia deserved a nice home to grow up in. So I sent the money. Once again, Trevor promised repayment. Once again, it never came. Over time, I started to see a pattern. Trevor and Brooke were living beyond their means. Brooke was constantly posting on Instagram about shopping trips, designer handbags, expensive restaurants. Their house was filled with new furniture, the latest electronics, expensive toys for the kids. Meanwhile, they were asking me for money. I realized slowly and painfully that my son and daughter-in-law saw me as a bank account, not as a person, not as someone who had worked hard for every dollar, just as a source of funds. I started to resent them. I hated that feeling. I did not want to resent my own child. But every time Brooke posted a photo of a new purchase on social media, I felt anger bubble up inside me. Every time Trevor called, I felt my shoulders tense, waiting for the inevitable request. I loved my son, but I was tired. Tired of being used. Tired of being taken for granted. So when I stumbled across the listing for the beach house in Carlsbad, something shifted inside me. I had always dreamed of living by the ocean. When David and I were young, before Trevor was born, we used to drive to San Diego every summer. We would rent a little cottage near the beach and spend a week swimming, walking on the sand, watching the sunset. David always said that one day when we retired, we would buy a place by the ocean. But that day never came. Now, sitting at my computer late one night, I looked at the photos of this house. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, hardwood floors, big windows, and a deck that overlooked the Pacific. The price was reasonable. With the money I had saved, I could buy it outright. No mortgage, just mine. My own little piece of paradise. I did not tell Trevor. I did not tell anyone. I called the real estate agent the next morning and scheduled a viewing. 3 days later, I drove the 3.5 hours from Phoenix to Carlsbad. The moment I walked into that house, I knew. This was it. This was where I was supposed to be. The light pouring through the windows, the sound of the waves, the smell of salt air. I felt at peace for the first time since David died. I made an offer that same day. The sellers accepted. Within 6 weeks, the house was mine. I paid cash. I arranged everything through my lawyer and the real estate agent. I used a separate email account and a cell phone number that Trevor did not have. I was meticulous, because I knew deep in my heart that if Trevor found out about this house, he would see it as family property. He would assume he had a right to use it whenever he wanted. Or worse, he would ask me for more money because if I could afford a beach house, surely I could afford to give him another loan. I could not let that happen. This house was mine. My dream, my sanctuary, the one thing in my life that was just for me. The day I got the keys, I drove to Carlsbad alone. I walked through my empty house and cried, not from sadness, but from relief, from joy, from the overwhelming feeling that I had finally done something for myself. I stood on the deck and watched the sun set over the ocean, and I whispered to David wherever he was. I told him I had done it. I had bought our dream house, and I wished more than anything that he could be there with me. Over the next few months, I furnished the house slowly. I did not rush. I wanted every piece to be perfect. I bought a soft cream-colored sofa for the living room, a small wooden dining table, a comfortable bed with white linens that smelled like lavender. I painted the walls pale blue and hung pictures of the ocean. I filled the kitchen with dishes and glasses. I planted flowers in pots on the deck. Every weekend, I drove from Phoenix to Carlsbad. I told Trevor I was taking weekend trips with friends from work. He never questioned it. Why would he? I spent my Saturdays and Sundays at the beach house, walking on the sand, reading books, cooking simple meals. I met my neighbors. Helen and George lived next door. They were in their late 70s, retired kind. Helen brought me homemade cookies the first week and invited me over for tea. I told her I worked in Phoenix during the week and came to Carlsbad on weekends. She promised to keep an eye on the house when I was gone. I gave her my phone number and told her to call if she ever saw anything unusual. For the first time in 5 years, I felt happy. Truly happy. The beach house was my escape, my refuge, the place where I could be just Catherine. Not Trevor's mother, not the widow, not the woman everyone expected to be endlessly generous and self-sacrificing. Just me. But then Trevor called. Again. This time, Brooke wanted to remodel their kitchen. They needed $30,000. I could hear the expectation in Trevor's voice. He assumed I would say yes like I always did, but this time I did not. I said no. I told him I did not have that kind of money available. Trevor was shocked. He argued. He said I had plenty of money, that I had David's life insurance, that I barely spent anything. I stood firm. I told him he and Brooke needed to learn to manage their own finances. I had helped them enough. The conversation ended badly. Trevor was angry. Brooke got on the phone and accused me of being selfish. She said family was supposed to help family. I felt guilt twist in my stomach, but I did not back down. After I hung up, I sat in my Phoenix living room and shook. I hated conflict. I hated disappointing my son, but I also knew I had done the right thing. I could not keep giving them money forever. They needed to learn responsibility. Trevor did not call me for 3 weeks after that. No texts, no emails, nothing. I sent him a few messages just to check in, but he did not respond. I told myself it was fine. He was upset. He needed time. But the silence hurt. I missed talking to him. I missed seeing photos of Ethan and Sophia. I felt torn between standing up for myself and maintaining my relationship with my son. Then, suddenly, Trevor called. His voice was warm, friendly, apologetic. He said he was sorry for getting angry. He and Brooke had talked, and they realized I was right. They needed to be more responsible with money. He asked if I would come over for dinner that weekend. I was so relieved I almost cried. Of course I would come. That Saturday night, I drove to Trevor and Brooke's house. They lived in a nice neighborhood in Scottsdale, about 40 minutes from my place. The house was big 4 bedrooms with a pool in the backyard. When I arrived, Ethan and Sophia ran out to greet me. I scooped them up and held them tight. I had missed them so much. Brooke greeted me at the door with a hug. She had made my favorite meal, pot roast with mashed potatoes. Trevor poured me a glass of wine. Everything felt warm and normal. During dinner, Trevor asked about my work. He asked if I was thinking about retirement. I told him I was considering it maybe in the next year or two. He asked where I would go if I retired. Would I stay in Phoenix? I kept my answer vague. I said I had not decided yet. Maybe I would travel. Maybe I would find somewhere new. Trevor nodded. He seemed genuinely interested. Brooke chimed in, saying I deserved to enjoy my retirement after working so hard all these years. I felt a warmth in my chest. Maybe things really were going to be okay between us. After dinner, Trevor hugged me tight and told me he loved me. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in weeks. My son and I were okay. Our relationship was healing. I told myself I had been right to set boundaries. It was making us stronger. But I had no idea what was really happening behind the scenes. A few days later, I got a strange email from my bank. It was a notification about a request to verify account information. I called the bank immediately. The representative told me that someone claiming to be my son had called asking about my recent transactions. They had not given out any information, she assured me. They required my direct authorization for that. But the fact that someone had tried made my stomach drop. I called Trevor. I asked him directly if he had contacted my bank. He denied it at first. Then he stammered and said he was just worried about me. He wanted to make sure I was managing my money okay. I told him that was not appropriate. My finances were private. He apologized, but his voice sounded hollow. After I hung up, I sat in silence. Something was wrong. Trevor was not just worried about me. He was trying to find out how much money I had. And that meant he was still thinking of me as a source of funds, not as his mother. I felt a chill run down my spine. What if Trevor somehow found out about the beach house? What would he do? I told myself it was impossible. I had been so careful, but a tiny seed of worry planted itself in my mind. The following month, I planned a longer trip to Carlsbad. I took 2 weeks off work, something I rarely did. I told Trevor I was going on a road trip with some friends from the hospital. I said we would be out of cell service for part of the trip hiking in remote areas. Trevor seemed fine with it. He told me to have fun and be safe. I packed my bags, loaded up my car, and drove west. Those first few days in Carlsbad were blissful. I woke up to the sound of seagulls. I drank my coffee on the deck, watching the waves roll in. I walked for miles on the beach. I read 3 books. I cooked simple meals and ate them slowly, savoring every bite. I felt like myself again, free, unburdened, at peace. On Tuesday afternoon, I was sitting in the backyard reading a novel when my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize, but it had a Carlsbad area code. I answered. It was Helen, my neighbor. Her voice sounded concerned. She said she did not want to alarm me, but there were people in my house. She had seen cars pull into my driveway that morning. She heard music and voices. She wanted to make sure everything was okay. For a moment, I was confused. I told Helen I was not sure what she meant. Then my brain caught up. I was not home. I was at the beach. But Helen was calling about my house. My beach house. People were inside my beach house. My heart started to pound. I thanked Helen and told her I would check on it. My hands were shaking as I opened the security camera app on my phone. I had installed cameras when I bought the house. One at the front door, one at the back door, one in the living room, one in the kitchen. I could access them all from my phone. I had never needed to check them before. But now I opened the app with dread pooling in my stomach. The front door camera loaded first. There were 2 cars in my driveway. One was a black SUV. I recognized it immediately. It was Trevor's car. My breath caught in my throat. I clicked on the living room camera. The image that appeared made me feel like I had been punched in the gut. My living room was full of people, at least 20 of them, adults and children. There were balloons everywhere, bright pink and gold balloons. A banner hung across the wall that read, "Happy Birthday, Brooke." The dining table was covered with food, cake, snacks, drinks. People were laughing, talking, holding plates. And there, in the center of it all, was Brooke, wearing a sparkly dress, a tiara on her head, posing for photos with her friends. And Trevor, my son, standing next to her with a beer in his hand, smiling like he did not have a care in the world. They were throwing a birthday party in my house, my secret house, the house I had bought with my own money, the house Trevor was not supposed to know about. I clicked through the other cameras. The kitchen showed more people gathered around serving themselves food. The back door camera showed children running around the deck. My deck, my sanctuary. I zoomed in on the living room camera again. Brooke was cutting the birthday cake. Her friends were taking photos. Someone said something, and I turned up the volume on my phone. A woman's voice came through clearly. "Brooke, your mother-in-law's beach house is amazing. You are so lucky she lets you use it whenever you want." Brooke laughed. "I know, right? She is so generous. We practically have our own beach getaway." I felt like I could not breathe. Brooke was lying to her friends. She was telling them I had given permission, that I was generous, that this was some kind of family arrangement. But I had never said any of that. I had never even told Trevor this house existed. How did he know? How did he get in? I scrolled back through the footage to earlier that morning. I watched Trevor pull up to the house at 9 o'clock. He got out of the car and walked straight to the front door. He pulled out a key, my key, or a copy of it. He unlocked the door like he owned the place and walked right in. My mind raced. When had he gotten a key? I had never given him one. Then I remembered. About a month ago, Trevor had stopped by my Phoenix house unexpectedly. He said he was in the neighborhood and wanted to say hi. He asked to use the bathroom. He was gone for a long time. At the time, I thought nothing of it, but now I realized. He must have gone through my things. He must have found the documents for the beach house, the deed, the address, and he must have found my spare key and made a copy. My son had stolen from me. He had invaded my privacy. And now he was throwing a party in my house without my permission, lying to his friends, treating my sanctuary like it was his personal vacation property. I sat there in disbelief watching the footage. People were eating my food from my kitchen, sitting on my furniture, walking on my floors with their shoes on. A child spilled juice on my cream-colored sofa. Nobody cleaned it up. Brooke was posing for selfies in front of my windows, posting them on Instagram with captions about her fabulous birthday celebration. My carefully chosen decor was being used as a backdrop for her vanity. I felt rage build inside me. Pure, white-hot rage. For 5 years, I had given Trevor everything: money, support, love, and he repaid me by violating my trust, stealing my key, and taking over my house. Brooke stood there in her sparkly dress, pretending I had blessed this party, lying to her friends, acting entitled to something that was never hers. I looked at the time. It was 5:30 in the evening. The party was still going strong. I made a decision. I was not going to call. I was not going to warn them. I was going to show up. I was going to walk into my own house and confront them in front of everyone. I grabbed my purse and keys. I was already in Carlsbad, just a few miles away at the beach. I got in my car and drove. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My heart pounded in my chest. I ran through what I would say, how I would handle it, but mostly I just felt anger, betrayal, hurt. I pulled up to my house 10 minutes later. There were cars everywhere, parked in my driveway, along the street. Music was blaring from inside. I could hear laughter and voices. I got out of my car and walked up to my front door. I did not knock. This was my house. I pulled out my key and unlocked the door. The moment I stepped inside, the noise seemed to stop. Not completely, but enough. People turned to look at me. The music was still playing, but conversations halted mid-sentence. I stood in the doorway of my own home, looking at a room full of strangers. Strangers who were eating my food, drinking my drinks, celebrating in my space. Trevor was in the kitchen. He saw me immediately. His face went pale. He set down his beer, his mouth opening, but no words coming out. Brooke was outside on the deck, her back to the door, still laughing with a friend. She had not seen me yet, but everyone inside had. A woman standing near me looked confused. She glanced at Trevor, then back at me. "Who is that?" she whispered to her husband. I did not wait for anyone to answer. I walked straight to the speaker and turned off the music. The sudden silence was deafening. Now, everyone was looking at me, including Brooke, who had turned around and was staring through the glass door with wide eyes. I spoke clearly and calmly, though inside I was shaking. "I need everyone who does not live here to leave. Now. This is my home. You were not invited. Please gather your things and go." There was a stunned silence. Someone whispered, "What is going on?" Another person looked at Trevor. "Trevor, who is this?" a man asked. Trevor swallowed hard. "That is my mom," he said quietly. His voice sounded small, ashamed. Brooke pushed through the door from the deck, her face flushed. "Catherine," she started, but I held up my hand. I repeated myself. "Everyone who does not live in this house needs to leave immediately. You are trespassing. Please go." My voice was steady, cold. I did not yell. I did not need to. The authority in my tone was enough. People started moving, gathering their purses, their jackets, their children, whispering to each other. Brooke's friends looked at her for explanation, but she just stood there frozen. One by one, they filed out. Some mumbled apologies. Others avoided eye contact. Within 10 minutes, the house was empty except for me, Trevor, Brooke, and their 2 children. Ethan and Sophia were hiding behind Trevor, their little faces peeking out. They looked scared. I hated that they were seeing this, but it could not be helped. I looked at Trevor, my son, the child I had carried and birthed and raised, the boy I had sacrificed everything for. "How did you get into this house?" I asked. My voice was quiet but firm. Trevor looked at the floor. He did not answer. I asked again. "How did you get in, Trevor?" He finally spoke. "I found the documents. At your house. Last month. I saw the deed. I did not understand why you did not tell me. So I took your spare key and made a copy." His voice was barely above a whisper. I felt my chest tighten. "So, you went through my personal papers. You stole my key. You broke into my house. And then you lied to your friends and told them I gave you permission. Is that correct?" Trevor looked up. His eyes were red. "Mom, I did not think you would mind. This is a family house, right? I mean, you bought it with Dad's insurance money. That makes it kind of ours, too." I stared at him in disbelief. "Ours? This house is mine. Trevor, I bought it with my money. Money I earned, money I saved. This is not a family house. This is my house. I never told you about it because I knew this would happen. I knew you would feel entitled to it." Brooke stepped forward. Her arms were crossed. Her voice was defensive. "We just wanted to celebrate my birthday somewhere nice. We cannot afford to rent a beach house. We thought you would understand. You have so much, Catherine. Would it really hurt you to share?" I turned to her. My voice was ice. "Share. You did not ask to share. You broke in. You lied. You told your friends I gave you permission when I did not even know you were here. That is not sharing. That is stealing." Brooke's face turned red. "We are family," she snapped. "Family helps each other. Family shares. You are being selfish." Something inside me snapped. I raised my voice for the first time. "Selfish, I have given you tens of thousands of dollars over the years. $40,000, Brooke. Money you never paid back. Money you promised to repay and then spent on designer bags and new furniture and fancy dinners. I have been generous. Too generous. And this is how you repay me. By invading my privacy. By taking what is not yours." Trevor looked like he might cry. "Mom, please, we are sorry. We did not think it was a big deal." I cut him off. "Not a big deal. You stole my key. You went through my private papers. You brought 20 people into my home without asking. You let your wife lie and say I gave permission. You disrespected me in every possible way. And you think it is not a big deal, silence." Ethan started to cry softly. Sophia clung to Brooke's leg. I took a breath and tried to calm down. "Give me the key," I said. Trevor hesitated. "Give me the key right now." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a silver key. He placed it in my hand. I closed my fist around it. Is this the only copy? He nodded. I will be changing all the locks tomorrow anyway, I said, just to be sure. Brooke was crying now, too. You are overreacting, she said through her tears. We were going to clean everything up. We were not going to damage anything. I looked around the room, at the juice stain on my sofa, at the crumbs on my floor, at the sticky fingerprints on my windows. Clean up. Look at this mess, but that is not even the point. The point is, you had no right to be here. I turned back to Trevor. I want you to know something, I said. All the money I gave you over the years, consider that your inheritance. You will not be getting any more. Not now. Not ever. I am done being your bank account. Trevor's face crumpled. Mom, you do not mean that. I absolutely mean it, I said. I raised you. I gave you everything. Now you need to stand on your own 2 feet. You and Brooke need to learn to live within your means. That is not my responsibility anymore. Brooke opened her mouth to argue, but I held up my hand. I do not want to hear it. I want you out of this house now. Take your children and go. But it is a 3.5-hour drive, Trevor protested. It is getting dark. You should have thought of that before you broke into my house, I said. My voice was final. Trevor stared at me for a long moment. Then he bent down and picked up Ethan. Brooke took Sophia's hand. They gathered their things in silence. The birthday cake sat half-eaten on the table. The balloons hung limply from the ceiling. Nobody spoke. Trevor stopped at the door. He turned back to me. His eyes were wet. I am sorry, Mom. I really am. I did not respond. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for them to leave. He nodded slowly, then walked out. Brooke followed without looking at me. I heard their car door slam. I heard the engine start. I watched through the window as they drove away, the taillights disappearing down the street. Then I closed the door and locked it. I stood in the middle of my living room, surrounded by the remnants of a party I never authorized, and I cried. I spent the next 2 hours cleaning. I threw away the leftover food. I wiped down every surface. I scrubbed the juice stain on the sofa until my hands hurt. I vacuumed the floors. I took down the balloons and the banner. I washed the dishes. I carried out bag after bag of trash. By the time I was done, it was past midnight. My back ached. My eyes were swollen from crying, but the house was clean again, mine again. I sat on the deck and looked out at the ocean. The waves were dark under the night sky. I could hear them crashing against the shore. I felt exhausted, emotionally, physically, but I also felt something else. Relief. I had stood up for myself. I had set a boundary. I had refused to be used anymore. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it was the right thing to do. The next morning, I called a locksmith. He came out and changed all the locks on my doors. New keys, new deadbolts. I also changed the password on my security camera system. I made sure everything was secure. Then I called my lawyer and asked about adding additional privacy protections to my property documents. I wanted to make absolutely sure that Trevor could never claim any legal right to this house. My lawyer assured me that since I had bought it with my own funds and it was in my name alone, there was no issue, but we filed some extra paperwork just to be safe. Over the next few days, Trevor called me repeatedly. I did not answer. He left voicemails. Long, rambling apologies. He said he had made a terrible mistake. He said he understood why I was angry. He said he wanted to make it right. I listened to the messages but did not call back. I needed time. Time to think. Time to process. Time to figure out what I wanted my relationship with my son to look like moving forward. Brooke sent me text messages. At first, they were apologetic. Then they turned angry. She accused me of being cruel, of punishing them over a simple mistake, of choosing money over family. I did not respond to those either. I blocked her number. I knew that if I engaged, it would only make things worse. Brooke did not understand. She probably never would. And that was not my problem to fix. I stayed at the beach house for the rest of my 2 weeks off. I tried to reclaim the peace I had felt before the party. It was not easy. Every time I walked into the living room, I thought about them. Every time I sat on the deck, I remembered watching them on the security footage. But slowly, the house started to feel like mine again. I walked on the beach every morning. I read, I cooked, I sat in silence and let myself heal. Helen came over with cookies again. She asked if everything was okay. I told her a simplified version of the story. My son had used the house without permission. It was a misunderstanding. It would not happen again. Helen nodded sympathetically. She told me about a time her own daughter had overstepped boundaries. Family is complicated, she said, but you have to take care of yourself first. Her words made me feel less alone. When my 2 weeks were up, I drove back to Phoenix, back to work, back to my regular life. But something had shifted in me. I felt stronger, more certain of myself. I had spent so many years trying to be a good mother, trying to be generous and loving and supportive. But I had forgotten to be those things to myself. I had forgotten that I mattered too, that my needs and my boundaries were just as important as anyone else's. 3 weeks after the party, I finally answered one of Trevor's calls. His voice was tentative, nervous. He asked if we could talk. I agreed. We met at a coffee shop halfway between Phoenix and Scottsdale. Neutral ground. Trevor looked tired. His eyes had dark circles under them. He sat across from me and immediately started apologizing. He said he had been selfish, that he had taken me for granted, that he had acted entitled and disrespectful. He said he and Brooke had been talking a lot. They had gone to a financial counselor. They were trying to get their spending under control. They were trying to be better. I listened. I did not interrupt. When he was finished, I spoke. I told him I appreciated the apology, but I also told him that words were not enough. I needed to see real change. I needed to see him respect my boundaries. I needed to see him and Brooke take responsibility for their own lives. I told him I loved him. I would always love him. But our relationship could not continue the way it had been. It was not healthy for either of us. Trevor nodded. He wiped his eyes. He asked if we could start over, slowly. I agreed, but I made it clear. No more money, no more loans, no more expecting me to solve their problems. If they needed financial help, they could go to a bank or a financial advisor. I was their mother, not their ATM. Trevor agreed. He promised to respect my boundaries. He promised to earn back my trust. That was 3 months ago. Since then, Trevor and I have been rebuilding our relationship. Slowly, carefully. We talk on the phone once a week. We meet for lunch once a month. He has not asked me for money. Not once. He tells me about his job, about the kids, about the changes he and Brooke are making. I listen. I offer support when appropriate, but I do not offer money. And I do not feel guilty about it. Brooke and I do not have much of a relationship. She is civil when we see each other, but there is a coldness between us. I think she still sees me as the villain in this story, the selfish mother-in-law who would not help. I have made peace with that. I cannot control how she sees me. I can only control my own actions, and I am confident that I did the right thing. I still go to the beach house every weekend. It is my sanctuary again, my safe place. Trevor knows about it now, obviously, but he has never asked to come back. He has never asked to borrow it. He respects that it is mine, and that respect means more to me than any apology ever could. I have learned a lot over these past few months, about boundaries, about self-respect, about the difference between generosity and being taken advantage of. I spent so many years giving to Trevor because I thought that was what a good mother did. I thought love meant always saying yes, always helping, always sacrificing. But I was wrong. Real love includes boundaries. Real love includes teaching your children to stand on their own. Real love includes taking care of yourself so you do not burn out from resentment. I gave Trevor so much, but in doing so, I did not give him the most important thing, the chance to grow up, to be responsible, to face consequences. By always bailing him out, I was enabling him. I was teaching him that he did not have to be accountable because Mom would always fix it. When I set boundaries, it was painful for both of us, but it was necessary, and now our relationship is healthier. Trevor respects me more. He values our time together more. He does not take me for granted, and I do not resent him. That resentment had been poisoning our relationship for years. Now it is gone. We are rebuilding on a foundation of mutual respect. It is not perfect. It is still a work in progress. But it is real. It is honest, and it is so much better than what we had before. I have also learned to prioritize my own happiness. For so long, I put everyone else first. David, Trevor, my job, my responsibilities. I told myself that my needs could wait, that I would take care of myself later. after everyone else was taken care of, but later never came. There was always someone who needed something, always someone who came first. Until I realized that if I did not put myself first, nobody would. The beach house represents that realization. It is the physical manifestation of me choosing myself, me deciding that I deserve something beautiful and peaceful and just for me. I do not feel guilty about that anymore. I used to. When I first bought it, I felt guilty for spending the money, guilty for keeping it secret, guilty for not sharing it with Trevor. But now I understand. I earned that house. I deserve that house. And I do not owe anyone an explanation for it. I have also connected with other women my age who have gone through similar situations. Through a support group I joined, I have met mothers who have struggled with adult children who feel entitled, who have had to set painful boundaries, who have had to choose themselves even when it meant disappointing their kids. These women have become friends. We support each other. We remind each other that we are not selfish, that we are not bad mothers, that we are simply human beings who deserve respect and kindness just like anyone else. My relationship with Ethan and Sophia is different now, too. I see them less often, but when I do, it is more intentional, more special. Trevor brings them to visit me in Phoenix once a month. We go to the park or the zoo or out for ice cream. I am teaching them about boundaries, too, in small ways. I let them know that Grandma has rules, that Grandma's things are special and need to be treated with care, that Grandma loves them, but Grandma also has her own life. I want them to grow up understanding that love does not mean giving up everything for someone else. It means respecting each other. I have not invited Trevor and his family to the beach house. Not yet. Maybe someday I will. When I feel ready, when I trust that they will respect my space. But for now, it remains mine. My retreat, my sanctuary. The place where I go to remember who I am outside of being a mother or a widow or an employee. Just Catherine. Just me. I have started thinking about retirement more seriously. I will turn 57 next month. I have worked for over 30 years. I am tired. Not just physically, but emotionally. I have given so much of myself to my job, to my family, to everyone around me. I think it is time to give to myself. I am planning to retire within the year. I will move to the beach house permanently. I will spend my days walking on the beach, reading, maybe volunteering at the local library or community center. I will live simply, peacefully, on my own terms. Trevor has asked me what my plans are. I have been honest with him. I am retiring. I am moving to California. I will be closer to my dream and farther from the demands that have exhausted me. He seemed sad when I told him, but he also seemed to understand. He asked if he and the family could visit sometimes. I said yes, with notice, with respect, with understanding that it is my home and my rules. He agreed. I think David would be proud of me, wherever he is. I think he would be glad that I finally bought the beach house we always dreamed about. I think he would be proud that I stood up for myself, that I refused to be taken advantage of, that I chose my own happiness. David always wanted the best for me. He always told me I was too hard on myself, that I deserved good things. I wish he were here to see this, to see me finally believing it. Looking back on that day when I walked into my house and found Trevor and Brooke throwing a party, I am grateful. I know that sounds strange. It was one of the most painful moments of my life, but it was also a turning point. It forced me to confront the truth about my relationship with my son. It forced me to set boundaries. I should have set years ago. It forced me to choose myself, and that choice, painful as it was, set me free. I'm not angry at Trevor anymore. I have forgiven him, but forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It does not mean going back to the way things were. It means moving forward with wisdom, with boundaries, with self-respect. Trevor and I have a relationship now, but it is a healthier one. It is based on mutual respect, not on him taking and me giving. And that is the way it should have been all along. So what would I say to someone who is going through something similar, to someone who feels taken advantage of by their adult children or their family? I would say this: you are not selfish for having boundaries. You are not a bad parent for saying no. You are not obligated to give everything you have to people who do not appreciate it. You matter. Your needs matter. Your happiness matters. and it is never too late to start choosing yourself. Setting boundaries is hard. It will hurt. People will be angry. They will accuse you of being selfish or cruel or uncaring. But their anger is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your own well-being, to your own peace of mind. If people truly love you, they will learn to respect your boundaries. They will grow. They will change. And if they do not, then maybe they do not deserve access to your life. I bought that dream home in silence because I thought I had to hide my happiness. I thought that if anyone knew I had something good, they would try to take it from me. And I was right. They did try, but I did not let them. I stood my ground. I protected what was mine. And in doing so, I protected myself. I am stronger now than I have ever been. Not because I cut people out of my life, but because I set limits on how much of myself I would give away. The beach house is still my sanctuary, but now it is something more. It is a symbol, a reminder that I am worth protecting, that my dreams are worth fighting for, that I do not have to apologize for wanting something that is just for me. Every time I walk through that door, every time I sit on that deck and watch the waves, I remember. I remember who I am, I remember what I deserve, and I remember that the best gift I can give my son is not money or access or blind generosity. It is the example of a woman who knows her worth. And that lesson, that is priceless. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? How did you handle it? Leave a comment below and share your story. Your experience might help someone else who is going through the same thing. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about family boundaries and finding yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who is struggling to put themselves first, someone who needs permission to say no. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope that wherever you are in your own journey, you remember that you are worthy of respect. You are worthy of happiness. You are worthy of a life that is yours and yours alone. Take care of yourself, set those boundaries, and never apologize for choosing you. Until next time, may you find the courage to protect your peace and the strength to build the life you deserve.